was such a fantasy fulfillment because you get to go to work and it looked like whatever your nightmare would be.
Completely realistic entity. For all we know, there is a queen someday.
It's been called the perfect nightmare. Alien didn't just scare audiences. It revolutionized sci-fi horror by proving that terror worked best when barely showing the monster. Today, we're boarding the Nostromo to uncover the secrets behind Ridley Scott's masterpiece. The script that almost didn't get made. Dan O'Bannon and Ronald Shusett wrote Alien while living in near poverty, desperately trying to break into Hollywood after O'Bannon's collaboration with John Carpenter on Dark Star taught him valuable lessons about low-budget sci-fi filmmaking. O'Bannon had watched Dark Star's comedic Alien fail to frighten audiences and became obsessed with creating a creature that would genuinely terrify viewers through design and atmosphere rather than camp humor. The screenplay faced constant rejection from studios who couldn't understand how to market Jaws in space or why audiences would care about blue-collar workers in a science fiction setting. Executive after executive passed on the project, viewing it as too dark, too weird, and too expensive for its B-movie premise without recognizable stars or franchise potential. The breakthrough came when producers Walter Hill and David Giler rewrote the script, tightening the structure and adding harder-edged dialogue that emphasized the crew's working-class resentment and economic desperation. Their contributions remain controversial among fans who debate how much they improved versus altered O'Bannon's original vision, but their involvement convinced 20th Century Fox to greenlight the project. Ridley Scott's artistic gamble. Ridley Scott came to Alien from a successful career directing television commercials, bringing visual sophistication that studio executives initially viewed with suspicion. His concept of truckers in space, emphasizing industrial design and working-class aesthetics over gleaming Star Trek optimism, seemed risky for audiences expecting traditional science fiction environments and heroic space explorers. Scott's insistence on Caravaggio-inspired lighting and shadowy compositions clashed with studio preferences for brighter, more conventional photography that would showcase the expensive sets. The director fought constantly to maintain his visual approach, understanding that darkness and suggestion created more effective horror than clearly visible threats. His commercial background had taught him how to create striking imagery efficiently, skills that proved essential for the tight shooting schedule. The cast has revealed that Scott's meticulous attention to visual detail sometimes frustrated actors who wanted more rehearsal time for character development, but his obsessive focus on atmosphere created the oppressive environment that made their performances feel genuinely claustrophobic and desperate throughout the production. Sigourney Weaver, the unknown who became a legend. Sigourney Weaver's casting as Ripley represented a massive gamble for 20th Century Fox, who wanted established stars to anchor their expensive production. The studio pushed for names like Veronica Cartwright in the lead role, but Scott and the producers believed Weaver's combination of intelligence, physical presence, and relative anonymity would serve the character better than a recognizable face. The revolutionary decision to make Ripley female came late in development, with the character originally written as a man. This gender swap occurred without significant script changes, creating a female protagonist whose competence and leadership weren't defined by traditional feminine qualities, but by professionalism and survival instinct. Weaver understood that Ripley wasn't a woman trying to prove herself. She was a warrant officer doing her job. Weaver's preparation involved studying working-class speech patterns and body language to make Ripley feel authentically blue-collar rather than Hollywood's typical glamorized version of labor. The cast has revealed that Weaver initially felt like an outsider among the more established British actors, but this social dynamic actually enhanced her performance as someone who didn't quite fit the Nostromo's established crew relationships. The Nostromo crew. Blue-collar space truckers. Tom Skerritt's Captain Dallas embodied reluctant authority, playing the character as someone who accepted command responsibility without enjoying the power or pretending to have all the answers. His performance emphasized Dallas's exhaustion with corporate bureaucracy, and his genuine concern for crew welfare over company profits, creating a leader audiences could believe in, even as his decisions led to catastrophe. Yaphet Kotto brought authentic working-class anger to Parker, the chief engineer whose resentment about pay and working conditions provided the film's most explicit commentary on labor exploitation. Kotto understood that Parker's complaints weren't comic relief, but legitimate grievances from someone. Equipment rather than valued employee. Harry Dean Stanton's Brett represented the ultimate working stiff, competent, resigned, and utterly without illusions about his place in the corporate hierarchy. Ian Holmes' Ash provided disturbing contrast as the science officer whose seeming awkwardness concealed inhuman calculation. John Hurt's Kane became cinema's most famous victim, while Veronica Cartwright's Lambert conveyed genuine terror that made audiences feel the crew's vulnerability. H.R. Giger's Nightmare Vision. H.R.R. Giger's hiring represented Alien's most crucial creative decision, bringing a Swiss surrealist artist whose biomechanical paintings depicted sexuality, death, and machinery fused into disturbing organic forms that had never appeared in mainstream cinema. Ridley Scott discovered Giger's work in the art book Necronomicon and immediately recognized that these nightmarish visions could create something truly original and deeply unsettling. Giger's alien design merged sexual imagery with predatory functionality, creating a creature that violated viewers on multiple psychological levels simultaneously. The elongated skull, metallic teeth, and disturbingly phallic appearance made the alien feel like a physical manifestation of sexual violence and body horror that worked on audiences' subconscious fears about penetration, violation, and loss of bodily autonomy. Studio executives expressed serious concerns about Giger's explicit sexual imagery, particularly the facehugger's resemblance to male and female genitalia and the alien's obviously phallic head design. The cast has revealed that Giger's concept art shocked everyone who saw it, but Scott defended the disturbing aesthetic as essential to creating genuine horror rather than standard monster movie thrills. The chestburster, cinema's most shocking scene. The legendary chestburster sequence achieved its visceral impact through careful deception of the cast, who knew something would emerge from John Hurt's chest, but weren't prepared for the explosive violence of the actual effect. The crew rigged Hurt with a prosthetic chest filled with real animal organs and blood that would spray across the dining table when the mechanical creature burst through. Veronica Cartwright's position directly in front of Hurt meant she received the full force of blood spray, her genuine shock and distress captured on film as she stumbled backward, covered in gore. The actress has spoken about feeling genuinely traumatized by the experience, which Scott had deliberately designed to create authentic terror rather than acted responses to something the cast had rehearsed and anticipated. The scene's impact came from its sudden violation of what had seemed like a recovery sequence, with Kane apparently recovered from his facehugger ordeal, and the crew sharing a meal in relaxed camaraderie. The explosion of violence from within a human body created body horror that audiences had never experienced with such graphic intensity in mainstream cinema. Building the alien. Practical effects. Mastery. Carlo Rambaldi's construction of the practical alien suit required solving unprecedented technical challenges to create a wearable costume that could bring Giger's nightmare design to life through real physical presence, rather than stop-motion animation or puppetry. The suit needed to allow natural movement while maintaining the creature's disturbing proportions and biomechanical details that made it feel genuinely alien. Balaji Badejo's casting as the alien performer came from a chance encounter in a bar where the 6'10" Nigerian design student's extreme height and naturally thin frame made him perfect for embodying the creature's unsettling proportions. Badejo had no acting experience, but his unique physicality and ability to move with fluid grace while wearing the restrictive costume created movements that felt genuinely inhuman rather than simply a person in a monster suit. Different techniques were employed for each alien appearance, full suits for some shots, mechanical heads for close-ups, and carefully choreographed lighting that kept the creature partially obscured to maintain mystery. The cast has revealed that working with the practical creature created genuine unease on set, making their terrified performances more authentic than reacting to tennis balls or empty space. The sound of silence in space. Jerry Goldsmith's orchestral score provided sweeping romantic themes that Ridley Scott ultimately rejected for most of the film, preferring silence and ambient sound to create unbearable tension through absence rather than musical guidance about when to feel scared. This creative conflict between composer and director resulted in Goldsmith's work being drastically re-edited and replaced with temporary music tracks that Scott preferred. The revolutionary use of silence as a horror tool forced audiences to strain to hear every small sound in the theater, making them active participants in creating their own dread rather than passive recipients of musical cues, telling them when danger approached. The Nostromo's industrial groans, hissing steam, and mechanical clanks created soundscape that felt authentically like a working spacecraft, rather than Hollywood's typical pristine starships. The aliens' own sounds, hissing, breathing, and that distinctive shriek, were used sparingly to maximize impact, with the creature often moving in complete silence that made its appearances more shocking. The cast has revealed that the minimal sound design on set created genuinely eerie atmosphere that enhanced their performances by making them feel isolated in an environment where every noise could signal approaching death. The set that became a character. Michael Seymour's production design revolutionized science fiction aesthetics by creating the Nostromo as a genuinely industrial workspace with cramped corridors, exposed pipes, and the grimy wear of actual machinery used for years without cosmetic maintenance. This used future approach made the spaceship feel like real working environment rather than the sterile, pristine vessels audiences expected from science fiction cinema. The derelict ship and space jockey chamber created sense of cosmic mystery and ancient history that suggested vast alien civilizations rising and falling long before humanity reached space. The massive fossilized pilot in his chair, the mysterious warning beacon, and the organic architecture implied stories that would never be explained, trusting audiences to be unsettled by unanswered questions. Cost-cutting solutions often enhanced realism. The Nostromo's corridors were built as modular pieces that could be rearranged and refilmed to suggest a larger ship than the limited budget allowed. The cast has revealed that the tight, claustrophobic sets weren't just designed for camera composition, but actually created genuine feelings of confinement that made their performances more authentically desperate and trapped throughout filming. The Final Girl reinvented Ripley's evolution throughout Alien, created the template for female action heroes by presenting a woman whose survival came from intelligence, resourcefulness, and refusal to panic rather than masculine strength or traditionally feminine vulnerability requiring rescue. Her authority as warrant officer established her competence before the crisis began, making her leadership feel earned rather than surprising when others failed. The controversial underwear scene in the shuttle has been debated for decades, with critics viewing it as unnecessary sexualization, and defenders arguing it showed realistic vulnerability before Ripley's final confrontation. Weaver has explained that she viewed the scene as showing Ripley at her most exposed and human, before donning the spacesuit that would transform her into the warrior who defeated the alien through strategy rather than strength. The final confrontation reinvented slasher film conventions by making the final girl someone who survived through planning rather than luck, who defeated the monster through intelligence rather than masculine rescue, creating character type that would influence decades of action heroines who followed in Ripley's footsteps. The legacy that changed everything. Alien's influence on science fiction cinema extended far beyond its creature design, establishing new visual language for depicting space travel as industrial labor rather than heroic exploration. The lived-in future aesthetic influenced everything from Star Wars' original trilogy refinements to Blade Runner's cyberpunk dystopia, proving that realistic wear and grime made fictional worlds more believable than pristine surfaces. The film demonstrated that science fiction horror could achieve both critical respect and commercial success without compromising artistic vision or reducing complex themes to simple monster scares. Its combination of practical effects, mastery, atmospheric direction, and intelligent subtext about corporate exploitation created template for elevated genre filmmaking that balanced entertainment with substance. The next time you watch Alien, notice how the sound design uses silence to create unbearable tension. Observe how the production design makes every surface feel tangibly real and used, and appreciate how Ripley's survival comes from intelligence and determination rather than traditionally feminine or masculine qualities stereotypically assigned to heroes. What's your favorite moment from Alien? How do you think the film's themes about corporate exploitation of workers apply to contemporary labor conditions? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives into science fiction cinema's most influential masterpieces.